821 34
Rename.
821 34 1874 1874
Is
Samsung A14 yang diganti. Marit Z cantik. Apa ngomong?
Pokyojong.
Okyojong.
Wahyu Aditya Rawul.
Hello, how are you, everyone? Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can I hear you?
Yes, great, thank you.
Hello, Mr. Jonathan. Doctor.
Hello,
Yeah.
how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Progress.
Excuse me, Dr. Jonathan.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. May I ask permissions to give directions to our students, to my students?
Okay, great.
Iya,
Thank you.
oke. Mas, Mbak semua mahasiswa, permisi semuanya, mohon ini sebentar lagi akan kita mulai. Sebentar lagi kuliah tamu, guest lectures pada kesempatan kali ini akan kita mulai. Jadi mohon untuk bisa mempersiapkan diri, bisa sebisa mungkin untuk bisa standby ya, maknanya on cam ini dihadirin kita ini sekarang ini kita kedatangan tamu yang sangat luar biasa sehingga jadi jangan sampai disia-siakan, betul-betul persiapkan diri kalau bisa cari posisi yang paling enak dan paling nyaman untuk bisa mendengarkan begitu agar kita bisa sama-sama nyaman untuk bisa apa mendengarkan dari penjelasan dari apa Dr. Bok Jong atau Mr. Dr. Jonathan. Okay, uh, Dr. Bok Jong or Dr. Jonathan, can we start these lectures? Maybe, inshallah, I will ask moderator in this uh, public lectures.
Right. Thank you. So thank you for
Okay.
the invitation, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate this chance to meet students here.
Okay. Okay. Wait a minute, Dr. Jonathan. I will start it. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, let us express our gratitude to God Almighty, who has blessed us with guidance, health, and the opportunities to grade us gather here today for these special occasions. And it's my pleasure to welcome to you, to all students, to the semester opening guest lecture organized by Public Administration's Department of Universitas Aisyah Yogyakarta. And it's my pleasure to have you all here today. My name is Muhammad Fajr Sodik, is one of the public administration's lectures. And I am the honors to serve the moderator as moderator for these insightful sessions. And before we start today, guest lectures, let we listened our welcoming speech that will be delivered by head of the Public Administrations Department, represented by Muhammad Fazin, MPA. You have the floor. Fazin
Okay.
sudah. Yeah, okay.
Hello. Okay, good afternoon all and good afternoon at the time of Indonesia, Mr. Jonathan from Ken University, which will present material new reality, persistent and crisis and politic crisis in public administration Indonesian context. I'm Ozin, Mr. Jonathan, representing of Mr. Gary, Head of Public Administration Studies Program at Unisa Yogyakarta. It is an honor for us to have your willingness to give lecture at the beginning of the semester of our campus. A little introduction that our campus is one of the campuses owned by Muhammadiyah Aisyah, one of the religious organization in Indonesia, especially for UNISA. This campus is managed directly of Aisyah, who is the largest women organization in the world. Without management by women, of course, men are allowed to contribute to him. Permission to say that this class was attended by various forces in Department of Public Administration. They were very enthusiastic to listen to lecture material from Mr. Jonathan. Hopefully, the class will be active and full of discussion. No need to linger, invite Mr. Sotik to get this event. Silahkan, Mr. Sotik.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Fazin, Pak Fazin, for your opening yeah, for your opening speech. And ladies and gentlemen, let we start. Our theme today is the lecture is new reality, consistency of crisis and public crisis for public administrations. Especially, maybe we can talk about in Indonesian context. And then this topic is highly relevant in the world days, where public administrations, a public administrator, continuously face complex challenges that demand strategic adaptations and resilience. Understanding the interconnected nature of crisis and developing effective response are crucially for public administration, scholars, and practitioners alike. And to help us explore this topic, we honored to have Mr. Pak Jang, PhD, or we can call it Dr. Jonathan, yeah, as our esteemed speaker today. Before we start it, let me brief introduce him, Mr. Pak Jang, Dr. Jonathan is esteemed academic and researcher in the field of public administrations. He currently serves as an associate professor at Kin University, New Jersey, United States of America, and is also visiting research fellow at the United Nations. His expertise spans multiple areas, including nonprofit management, social enterprise and entrepreneurship, public policy analysis, statistic, international development, international organizations, and public or private partnership. As one of the editor of the Routledge Handbook on Crisis and Public Crisis and Public Administration, the first editions. And Dr. Jonathan brings valuable perspective on challenges of crisis and public crisis in public administrations. And today's lectures, we will discuss the dynamic of the public administrations and policy disciplines, particularly recognizing the limited understanding of the nature interconnections and responses of the for the crisis and polycrisis when multiple crises emerging what disaster catastrophic, whether human made or natural disaster stimulations affect citizen in geographical locations and public administration scholar must be explore. We are all the public administration scholars must be explore how each crisis challenges human capacity, information's technology, and communications ability, as well as how public leaders should be respond. And now, without further ado, let we welcome and our distinguished speakers. There are Mr. Bak Jang, PhD, or we can say it, or we can call it Dr. Jonathan, to deliver his lecture. Dr. Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the kind, generous introduction. And also, I would like to appreciate this kind invitation to opportunity to meet students and audience here at the university as Asia Unisa, Yogyakarta, Indonesia, and especially public administration. I got the honor to visit the campus there while I was doing my field research and to meet and to interview with one of the social enterprise there to support women's microfinance, which I was so impressed. The managed and supported by your university. So that I was very honored to meet students here because I see the value and contribution your university is making. But again, thank you. So today's lecture is about one of the book I co-edited as a co-editor about the crisis management in the public administrations. Think about what's happening these days. Crisis is not just ending at one time at one location. It continues in multiple and it overlaps with multiple incidents. And also you cannot even see where it started or where it ends because it is mixed with combination of incoming or outgoing crisis and incidents. So people will face, for example, think about what happened during pandemic. The, the public health pandemic happens that creates local disaster at the same time in public health, but it creates a lot of economic issues because people don't know how to deal with it. And the public sector government should address this economic and public health crisis. At the same time, it creates a lot of death and casualties of the people, but at the same time, people suffered economically and poverty because of this instant. But sometimes this crisis occurs mixed with natural disasters and also economic and the crisis as well because all mixed with all together. That's why we call it polycrisis. The role of public administrators is become more important because this instance are very complex and also it's sometimes an unprecedented. So you have to deal with how to address the face this crisis in sometimes in a very creative way, and sometimes you have to go through some experimentation like we experienced in during the pandemic. So the uncertainties are very common these days. It's not clear one-cut resolution. You have to go through as a public administrator working in the government. You have to work with a lot of partners, stakeholders, not just domestically, but sometimes also beyond that. So having said that, I would like to share my lecture slide, and then I'll go through, introduce the book and what it carries in the new coming handbook. So let me show my screen. Do you see my screen with lecture slide?
Okay, you're
Okay,
ready.
thank you. So again, this is upcoming book. It will be launched now publicly. Will become available in March and 18th. It's now already available through online purchase at this moment, but it will be fully published by mid June, March of this month. So I worked with lots of distinguished scholars in the public administration field, so including Kim Maloney and Gloria Billingsley and me, and also Pablo and Tonya Thornton and Eric G. Moran. How we started this book was we were the Presidential Task Force Committee of Pandemic Crisis of ASPA. I don't know, you may heard of it. ASPA is American Society for Public Administration. So we are part of this Presidential Task Force Committee of the largest association of public administration scholars and practitioners. So we were dealing with this issue over 3 years of time during the pandemic on behalf of this association. We hosted a lot of webinar and also the lectures and also a series of special issue journals. And we have been working on this one for 3 years. At the same time, we thought that creating handbook in the public administration will be very important because it will have a remaining lasting influence over public administrations in not just in the US, but also globally. So that's how we started. It took about 4 years so far. We see this is coming in this way. So I'm very excited to see how it's working, and also I'm very excited to share at one of the early stage of this book publication. So main concept we discussed and addressed in this book covers lots of parts of world in the US, of course, but at the same time, Asia, Latin America, Africa, and some part of Europe in geographically. But at the same time, it covers lots of structural issues and systems, and also agents like our actors in the government, public sector, and civil society, and also international organizations. And also it covers topics about technology and also human resources and also communication. At the end, we covers about how it affect actual practitioners in the field and public sector, including public administrators like you, a lot of students who will become the future administrators. So this book, like, it's not just providing theoretical overview, but it discuss lots of cases across the world, and as well as also it covers lots of lessons for practitioners. So then let's start with the terms we are discussing. We use the term crisis. The crisis has a lot of similar terms in these days in academia, in the field. You may heard a lot of terms emergency. Sometimes people say emergency management matters. Sometimes we say crisis management. Crisis is a more bigger and more systemic term. That's why we chose crisis. The emergency is more unpredictable, unforeseen, sometimes some instance, but regularly occurs. But if you add more systematic issue, challenges, that becomes more crisis-like. So you see the social system. Think about what happened during pandemic. The whole system surrounding this public pandemic, government should provide economic or certain policies, regulations. They should mobilize all those system, public sector or nonprofit sector or economic sectors, the more systemic response. So that's why we more like a crisis, not just a one-time emergency of instance. But at the same time, if you see compare with disasters is more about that the damages occurred throughout the society. It could be natural damages also on the human caused disasters. Catastrophe is more like a bigger scale, exceptional event that has a significant impact and great extent to the society. But in the end, I all connected. It's not always separable. Crisis sometimes comes with catastrophic instance, right? But also it occurs through a certain one-time emergency. So these terms can be sometimes used interchangeably. Also, it's about your selection, which one you more emphasize. This book we should use the term crisis because we saw the more systemic response effect across the society beyond just one single sector or one single groups. So then why are we using adding additional term poly crisis, crisis? So we use the term poly crisis because in many occasions these days, these crises occurred multi-layer overlapping beyond one single sector or level. So it continuously overlapping affect your society all across this one society and beyond that, not just domestically and globally. I keep emphasizing that example of a pandemic, which triggered this book project. Think about what happened in a pandemic. It goes beyond the one government. Each government should address together, and World Health Organization should convene lots of government representatives because this is unprecedented territory. So then it brought lots of actors and also policies even without knowing where we'll be working, right? So they have to go through another approach, and by regional, by domestically, and think about what happened in a lot of domestic parts of the countries. So that's why we use the term polycrisis. And again, it combines with crisis, emergency, disaster, catastrophe, all simultaneously affecting citizens or society and beyond one single location in this case. So this is a one and off event. This is continuously affecting. Think about a lot of disasters and earthquakes, including in that occurred in Nepal 2015. More recently, a lot, and also Indonesia had to go through a lot of, and also also recent experiences about the natural disasters, and also in Turkey as well. And it's very common all those natural disasters. So we will see those examples, and also it's not ending before it ends. Another crisis occurs, right? Natural disasters and also public emergencies. That's all occurred. In our handbook, we covered 57 crisis events altogether. These are all similar at the same time different. Location wise, they're different. The scale wise, very different. And also in terms of what type of a crisis disasters occurred in each part of society is different. And who are the main respondents were different as well. And who worked in this part together is very different. Their responses are very different. So that's why we looked at these 57 cases comparing in different chapters, and we reorganized with a kind of view of our understanding to help the audience in the public sector. Let me give you a couple of examples of what this polite crisis means. Think about the pandemic increased actually the inflation occurred and across the country. A lot of country had to go through the inflation, high price of your food, right? And those are lack of supply that increased a lot of threats to your livelihood. And also it spiked the homelessness, a lot of people, and government should address this through public sector response. But it continues. It didn't really end when even government or World Health Organization, oh, now is the end of a pandemic, but you will see still continuing effect in your local communities. So that's the example of what we are referring to. But at the same time, think about the natural disaster often happened a lot in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, of course, the Philippines. and Thailand, and also and sometimes a lot in East Asia, in Japan and Taiwan, all parts of Asia, of course, in Europe, right? And also in Latin America, all those are natural disasters. And recently, more interestingly, increasing issues, migration issues. So this disaster is not only one simple one-time incident that triggers lots of migration issue because you have to move to relocate yourself after this disaster. So that creates become more issues into government because government should regulate their movement or provide some the areas where those migrants can stay, and that be combined with economic responses and the societal response. And also respondents include not just the public sector government agencies. They should invite those local community partners. And also, in many cases, it worked with international relief agencies, right? The UN relief agencies come, and also a lot of international NGOs work together, coming to these local parts to address these issues. So again, as I said at the beginning, you may even know when it started. Think about how when the started of public pandemic, you're not even sure when is the first instant, right? Third time we see debating where it started and how it started. And also we are not sure whether it ended fully because now we are living in new era, post-pandemic era, that effect still ongoing. It affects your mentality and it affects your life pattern because you still see some people work remotely after pandemic, which never been possible without this pandemic. So see how this crisis management affects your life system. So now we are living different time. Think about what's happening now here. We are meeting through Zoom. It might never happen without pandemic experience. Now we are so used to Zoom because it's post-pandemic era. Think about it. So this we are living in the post-pandemic new normal time. So we are very used to about new communication. This overcoming those geographic obstacles. So these are all the examples of what the pandemic means, what poly-pandemic or poly-crisis means. So this is the structure of the handbook. So we have around 60 sections of this handbook. One is structured in crisis. Think about what is structure. Structure covers about which in the society address as a actor, like a government, or sector, private and public. And also we see the structure of global structure, which is global north and global south. So we thought that this is more structural issues, which is beyond some certain individual agents or agencies. So we call that this sometimes structural systemic issues in crisis. So we collected a couple of contributions in this section of structures in crisis. And the next part is agents in crisis. Think about if there are structure exists, you will see also actors exist within the system. So we call them agents. So it's individual actors. It could be government organization. It could be private corporations. It could be civil society organizations. It also could be international NGOs, or it could be multilateral organizations like United Nations. Brings a lot of countries under this one organization. We sometimes call it multilateral international organizations. So see, these agents work together or sometimes separately, but aligned and collaboratively. So we call them under agents in the crisis. But at the same time, because this is more practical issues about how you manage this problem, how you respond with skills and also the resources. So we looked at more human capital perspective in the public sector or private sector or civil society sector. But at the same time, information technology became huge, increases influence effect in these cases. We put them under information technology mobilization under this crisis. And we looked at communication matters a lot. If you observe in many crisis disasters, and you see a lot of communication goes out to call for support, relief efforts from those agencies located local. They send out the information, right? But those incoming, the relief agencies interchangeably, timely respond, communicate about what's needed and what relief efforts should be coordinated. So these are all communications crisis. Communications in crisis is not only during the emergency period. It occurs even before the crisis because sometimes you see some areas more frequently facing those crises and disasters. They communicate to prepare them, help them to respond before the crisis as a preparation. But at the same time, this is multi-stage of crisis disaster response. So after post-crisis and disasters, you have to address how can you make people live or respond and recover after pandemic, after the disaster effect. So these are actually communications longer period time rather than just one-time disaster management. And we provided practitioners lessons. We got lessons from different views, different areas. Sometimes it covers about their practitioners in the public sector response, practitioners in their faith-based or religion or faith-based organizations, what they do, how they help this crisis. Practitioners in the private sector corporations, how they work together, practitioners in certain regional agencies. So we will see practitioners' view at the end. So in today's lecture, I will not cover all these 6 sections, but I will only introduce today as an introduction because we have a time limit. And also I would like to spend some time with you in the Q&A and discussion and get your interest and get your insights and while responding back and forth. This is more an interesting way to communicate rather than just me just keep talking whole book sections. So today I will discuss 2 parts. One is structure, one is agents. So I will introduce some of the chapters about what structural insights matters and what structural insights we brought through this handbook, and also what agents work in this field. Okay, so these are today's lecture. So the structural section covers a lot about global national perspective altogether. Okay, what is the globally matters, what agencies work globally as a partner, but at the same time that affect the political, social, and economic structure. I kept mentioning lots of structures around during crisis, right? Political system sometimes they break down after crisis, right? Think about what's happening a lot of these conflicts, right? In Africa, in Asia, in Middle East, and also ongoing current most controversial political crisis, wars in Ukraine. Think about what it affects. It's not only one-time war conflict, it's political system matters across the world. Sometimes those countries and societies and political actors surrounding these disasters, wars, and conflicts, they discuss how to deal with it, who will be taking care of it, right? And who will address this issue, who will end this war, this conflict. These are all more structural issues rather than just one-time instant, one actor triggered event. This is very complicated. looking about all those migrant issues in Europe, and also in America, and facing the borders of this country. This is all about social economic structure, how they design the responses of public policy surrounding these refugee issues, right? So now I'm located in Geneva. So yeah, thankfully, gratefully, I was interested at the beginning. One of my current role is a researcher, as a visiting research at the UN in Geneva. What I'm doing now is that do looking at those social solidarity economy and across this country, especially I looked at Southeast Asia. That's why I traveled in Indonesia as well. I traveled last year. I looked at countries in Southeast Asia geographically. I visited Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia. I looked at a lot of different system, how that works in the, and also at the same time in societal and collaboration. Always government policy matters surrounding these actors. A systemic collaboration matters. Government introduces laws in these societal community issues, right? And but private sector actors, including these private sector social enterprises or community-based and the enterprises, community enterprises, they work within the setting of a political system or the setting of policy, public policies. These are all systemic matters, not just a one-time actor, one-time response. That's what we are talking about in these structural issues. So let me share about the first chapter of the structure issue. It covers the examples from this World Value Survey, looking at this pandemic, what the value system were influenced, how in Colombia, in Latin America, how the citizens' values and perceptions and about the government has changed after this COVID pandemic, right? So you remember a lot of the surveys were made after pandemic about their trust, about public policy, about the government responses. Sometimes the trust went down, right? At some period, the confidence increased, but temporarily over time, the declining trust also became more serious in many cases. And also, you see a lot of responses about the citizens. How do you deal with the citizens' expectations, their problems? So remember, this crisis occurs who are collaborating, how much confidence these individuals or citizens and how they perceive about government. So you remember the issues about this trust. Some society went through sort of a kind of skepticism about this government response, which became so problematic after pandemic, even including the United States, right? So, but sometimes, oh, whether this vaccine works, right? There are sometimes skepticism, some conspiracy theory occurred and during and after pandemic. So think about this is not only one-time issue. This is more systemic trust issue about how much people believe in the public sector response or government responses. So another chapter we looked at is the Ghana and African Case Natural Disaster Management Organization. So it looked at national policy actors in Ghana, in Africa. It looked at a lot of issues of capacity building because in African countries, sometimes they have through affluent resources, but it's also how you manage it through human resources, not just the natural resources. So we looked at, in this case, the authors, Omang and Foley, and suggested the significant role of transnational actors. I don't know whether you heard the term transnational. The transnational means sometimes a lot of actors exist across the borders. Good example is the United Nations, right? The United Nations is everywhere, right? Headquartered in Europe, headquartered in New York, headquartered and also in Thailand. So a lot of regional headquarters. At the same time, it has country offices, including in Indonesia, right? And in also headquarters in countries in Africa. And if you go to Kenya, Uganda, all the UN agencies, you see multi locations of these agency. That's why it's transnational. It's not only limited to one nation or one country. It exists, it works, it operates transnationally to address this crisis. These are transnational actors. So Ghana case, it shows that their responses and local domestic responses sometimes limited. And then these transnational actors like United Nations or international NGOs work together to overcome those restrictions that occurred in domestic level. So that's why we give them kind of structural responses, not just one actor. So another example, this handbook provides from Latin American countries, Brazil, Mexico, Paraguay, and this addresses about administrative, technical, and political capacities in these countries. As you may know, in Latin American countries, sometimes go with a lot of systemic weaknesses administratively. It's not because administratively, also because the political environment, instability occurred in these countries. So then we looked at the disaster risk management occurred in municipal level debates. And this chapter overviews these issues about technical training for local government managers. Why that matters? Because a lot of responses occurs in the municipal local government levels. So the same for Indonesia, of course. Indonesia has a strong that the roles of local governments. When I traveled there, I was able to meet the local municipal officials in the government sectors. Their role is very important because these responses should occur in the local level, not the federal central government level. So that's this chapter covers that. And also another chapter and discusses about those organized crime issue. So this is slightly different nature than examples I provided. Sometimes organized crime could be considered as a crisis management. Why? Because this is a more systemic issue occurs in a societal level when public sector cannot fully control these incidents or these all the crimes that becomes more problematic across those borders. Sometimes as international actors respond together. Why? Because one single government cannot fully respond to it. So that's what this chapter covers in terms of a transnational policy network to manage this global crisis. There are these international, global, transnational cases matters because otherwise this becomes more uncontrollable and that affects local government and their public sector capacity in the end. So another example comes from Argentina and Mexico, and it looked at more capacity building and in the crisis. And also it looked at organizational, financial, political resource perspective. And it looked at specifically in the woman's case of a violence against a woman. And at the onset of a public in a pandemic, lots of domestic and also violence occurred during public sector crisis. And then it looked at how this organization, country level policies help protect those women and against those the violences. Okay. So this become a lot problematic in a lot of countries and those violences. The last chapter of this section one of structure looked at about the political landscape. And so this author discussed about interagency collaboration. Why? Because a lot of responses are fragmented. So if you, I'm not sure whether you're familiar with the term fragmentation. Fragmentation means everything is separate. So separated by geography, separated by agencies, separated by actors. They don't collaborate in many cases. So this chapter brought the view of interagency collaboration perspective. See how this interagency collaboration helps to embrace the hierarchical governance models. So which means a lot of this the hierarchies exist, but you have to see how to connect them, right? Through across those agents. That's what this chapter offered. The multi-level, multi-scalable, and multi-hierarchy collaboration. Sometimes, which means this is very difficult terms, but if I put them very simple, easy term, which means collaboration can occur in many layers. It could be often occurs in the UN, the highest level of a global system. It may occur regional level. Think about ASEAN countries, right? In the regional level, ASEAN collaboration. It occurs in one country level in Indonesia. It occurs in the regional level and country level, and also local government level. This is a multi-level governance. The multi-level governance occurred during these natural disasters. And also think about those responses occurs in a small scale in a local context, but it spread across the globe. It could be multi-scale, not just one local level smell response, but it occurs in the also national level response and global level response and helping those local actors. That's multi-scalarity. And these are all actors work in a different nature. Sometimes you work with public sector efforts, but sometimes you work in a private sector, public sector collaboration. The difference exists in among these efforts. This is a more hierarchy perspective. Again, these all together put them in a term is that these all efforts collaboratively, not just one single effort in a multi-level, in multi-scale, and with the different actors. So that's why we call it as our response interagency collaboration. Let's look at the second section of this lecture, highlights from this handbook, which is the agent in crisis. Think about the agents. Agents are actors. Which actors work in the field? Think about what occurred during those natural disasters in Indonesia, or tsunami in Indonesia, or the earthquake in Turkey or Nepal, right? Think about what happened was it triggered lots of efforts in the local agents, in the local provinces, communities, right? But it's not only single actor. It brought lots of international organizations, relief agencies. But at the same time, at the center, the local government, the central government coordinate these efforts. So Indonesia it went through lots of disasters and also the impact from this disaster, including, of course, the pandemic as well. Think about what they do in government sector and public administrator. They have to coordinate, send the calls for support at the same time, bringing all those national level policies and delivering those resources to the local agencies. But these agencies work directly, sometimes surpassing these domestic or national agencies. Why? Because this disaster occurs a very short time period of time. There's no time central government to do everything. So in that case, those interactions between local volunteer agencies directly working with the UN relief agencies, right? Directly work with the international NGOs. So that's why we see interactions with agents or actors. So these are chapters. So one of the chapters is me. I worked with Dr. Yo, and me worked together. And because I'm a sort of expert in the United Nations, I worked with the UN. I work partner with the UN, and I did some examples analysis across this UN system during pandemic and also crisis. So me worked with my colleague, and this chapter they looked at how the UN system respond, how the US system bring different actors in different country cases. In this case, specifically looked at Nepal 2015 Nepal earthquake. So at the end of this presentation, I will show you one chapter, which is mine, and show you one analytical view because the analysis data-based approach matters. Decision making should be supported by this data science. And also, this should be based on those scientific evidence to show who are there, how they collaborate, who collaborate, right? Surrounding after these post-pandemic, post-disaster cases. So this chapter, I will have more time to present at the end, but it introduced the framework about vertical, horizontal, and diagonal framework, which this book suggested through this book. And also, this vertical, horizontal, diagonal is based on the framework from another handbook I contributed about 10, I think 8 years ago, which is another handbook I wrote together with a couple of authors and looked at global policy in public sector. The term global policy is different than domestic country policy. Think about what happens during pandemic. The policy is not only referring to occurs on the country level of Indonesia. Policy does not necessarily mean policy only implemented in a single country in Nepal, right? Sometimes policy covers shared agreement across these countries during pandemic. Those policy responses went under the World Health Policy organizations. It occurred during the United Nations agreement on the responses in a certain the disasters. So what we call it global policy. Why this is goes beyond one single country. So this book I'm introducing another book I'm mentioning is that they provide the framework of a vertical, horizontal, diagonal the categories of understanding these interactions. So this book, this chapter of this disaster crisis management, we adapted this framework and to look at the Sendai framework, which was developed after tsunami in Japan a while ago. They use that as the term as Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. So we looked at this as a case study to show the role of UN system. Another chapter looked at more historical analysis with the case of Ghana of NGOs' role, the non-governmental organizations. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the term NGOs. The NGOs, of course, is private sector, civil society actors, which is not public agencies. But in many cases, including African case, the NGOs involvement really helped a lot in collaboration with the government partner. So that's why this case looked at those Ghana case of a collaboration of multi-sector stakeholder collaboration. So Abu Jaki is a well-known scholar from Ghana who covered this multi-sector stakeholder collaboration Another chapter looked at these the flood case and the resilience, Mauritius, and the islands of Reunion and Madagascar, and they looked at the flood case and across these countries how these community resilience after this crisis, right? And also how those they manage the flood management system. So that's in terms of institutional capacity building. So another chapter looked at local governments and their roles, their partnership with community stakeholders, and working with the local industry, healthcare industry. And these all cover the examples of in the southern states. And it conducted a survey and in across these actors. And also this chapter recommend out of this analysis local governments and their policies, their responses matters. And it specifically looked at communication, education were key to give awareness of those local respondents. And also it gives a lot more capacity building throughout this community's response system through this the case. So let's move to the next part about the sample chapter I selected. So I chose my chapter, my book. So this is a Sendai framework of a disaster and from Nepal earthquake. The Sendai framework becomes very important. So I attended, for example, the Sendai system framework discussion at the UN last year and 2 years ago. It continuing developed through the tsunami response in Sendai framework, and they delivered and they designed the system collaboration across the world. That's why we adopted this Sendai framework, and then with the case of the UN. Professor Yo and I, we work together, as I said at the beginning, in the middle, we use the term framework of vertical, horizontal, diagonal. So these three framework used to analyze the data. We looked at the data from those reports and documents coming out from Nepal earthquake. We looked at which actors actually worked on these responses post and during the crisis disaster, and we identified each actors and we looked at how they responded together, and that's how we mapped it out on the map and see using social network analysis. So it includes public, nonprofit, and private sector agencies and transnational actors. And also, we looked at the network analysis of the magnitude of these actors' interventions. So in terms of analytical method, we work together and looking at network analysis. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the network analysis. I've been using network analysis when you see collaboration among actors. So we use the term using software R package. So the R package is statistical analysis package. It's open source. Anyone can use it, but you can adopt lots of tools and analysis. We use the R package through the network analysis, looking at which actors exist. We extracted those terms and we identified what their natures are. Are they international organization? Are they domestic actors? Are they private sector or public sector? So we just identified that key actors to analyze this transnational model. And then we use this transnational crisis management system circling around this United Nations, who are the hub of this collaboration. So we looked at UN system is at the center of the hub of the response system. That's what we looked at. So we see that this transnational crisis governance system. So we will show some of the result. So this kind of overall capture of this crisis management system. You see in the center, there's a like hub, right? The social network. These are UN hub, UN agencies. a lot of domestic and also regional actors are circling around these UN agencies. So we didn't identify key actors in name. So because of the limitations of display and visualization, but we break down those agencies by locally, by geographically, by sector-wise. So these are transnational crisis management system within the Nepal, and local and national level, and also international level. Look at the percentage. A lot occurred above this Nepal domestic system. It occurred international level, close to 90% occurred during beyond just domestic country level during the crisis. So it explains that how important it would be like multilateral organizations like UN or international NGOs, relief agencies. Why? This international, transnational level efforts cannot be fully restricted on the local level and the country level. So that's how we emphasize that. But look at also this, the sector, public sector, and the non-profit and private sector. Public sector is about 40%, right? But the others occurs more than 50%. It's more than close to 60% occurs in the private non-profit sector. That's why, as a public administrator who studies public administration, you have to understand the logic, the motivations, the operation of a nonprofit sector or civil society sector or the private partners. Why? In disaster and crisis management, you are working with these actors, goes beyond the public agencies. So that's what a lot of curriculum in the public administration should embrace how you collaborate with local agents, how you collaborate with private partners, how you collaborate with these emerging social enterprises, those innovative social impact organizations, right? There are regions, they use different terms. When I did interviews across this Southeast Asian country, they use different terms. They use sometimes the social impact organization, they sometimes the social innovation entities. They use sometimes enterprises, social enterprises. They sometimes even call them the impact social impact bonding, social impact enterprises. So anyway, these are all different terms, but you have to know why they work with which resources. So how they collaborate, how the government can bring those partners into this disaster emergency response. And then we looked at the INGOs, international NGOs, where are they located? Who came to help this Nepal earthquake? We see how diverse they are. These international NGOs, although they came to help the Nepal earthquake, but they are from everywhere, right? Not just in Southeast Asia, but it came from Latin America, Europe, even Africa, right? And it's from everywhere. So that's what it says. These international collaboration centered around the disaster occurs in the multi-layer, multi-sector, and geographically covers lots of parts of the world. And then we looked at about those actual central agencies and actors in transnational crisis management system. So you look at a lot of parts. So these are some very technical terms. We use a network analysis. It's a degree centrality, eigenvector centrality, hub centrality, and between centrality. I will not explain the details about what this centrality means, but these are measures of centrality, which agents are center, or which agents work as a liaison, right? Which actors work as a partner of influential agents, which actor work as actually connection between these two. So these are all technical terms. But you can see across these different measures of centrality of network analysis, Nepal government is always the key. So as a central government is the key actor because you are public administration students. You should understand the role of key actor of central government. But that's not the single actor agencies, right? You look at a lot of these other countries, not just in Southeast Asia or neighboring countries, these are sometimes come from different parts, right? And the UN system is always also affecting, influencing all those collaborative efforts. But you see, United Nations in the hub centrality is one of the top five, right? So which means the UN does not provide everything as a center. That the Nepal government is at the more like a center ranking number ranked one, right? First. But in centrality, in terms of degree centrality, UN was ninth. But in terms of hub, was the five. Why is five? Because UN's role is a hub connecting these international agencies through this UN system. This is more like a hub of center of network. Okay, that's what it shows as a hub. So that's what this study this shows about what's this international organization's role within this network of crisis management system. So at the end of this book, overall, this chapter provides practical lessons. The one of the highlights of this edited book, we ask every chapter provide at the end of each chapter, provide what the practitioners should learn from this chapter. What the practical lessons each public administrator should learn from this case. So that's why this chapter also included points for public administrators, what should learn from this chapter. The lesson is the transnational collaborative model exists. As a public administrator, you have to learn, understand who are there, right? Because it goes above one central government, as we saw from the Nepal earthquake. 90% is above the central government level. Then you have to understand who are there, how you bring them, how you coordinate these efforts. Another lesson to public administrator is, so think about the flexibility what these international organizations have over a one single domestic country. They have some flexibility. That's why sometimes these international NGOs or international organizations like UN or the relief efforts, relief NGOs can take advantage of their advantage of flexibility because they don't go beyond bureaucratic regulation of one single country. So that's why sometimes the central government of Nepal, Indonesia should work with these international NGOs, international organizations, because then they can take advantage of this flexible structure above them. And also, the central government can collaborate more flexibly by working through this international organizations like UN system. That's another lesson. Another lesson is interactions of diverse sectors matters and those overcoming those horizontal barriers, right? So the UN was one of them. So you see how those horizontal integration occurs across different borders of each country. So horizontal in this case means the collaboration occurs of country level of A of another country level B. Country A, B work together in a horizontal level. If you look at the examples of Nepal case, Nepal central government should work sometimes with Indonesia government. Okay, Nepal's local municipal government sometimes work with municipal government in Indonesia. That's horizontal. Goes cross the bordering of one country, but it's different, the same level. So local government of country A, local government of country B, that's horizontal because the same level but a different country. So we call them horizontal integration. Okay. The vertical means vertical is the UN, central government, local government, and also these local communities. These are vertical. Horizontal is the same level of different countries. Diagonal in this case means sometimes diagonal occurs of central government A, but local government of B. This is kind of diagonal, right? Again, another example. Oh, this UN system of top agencies, but working with a local partner of country B. That's diagonal. Why? It's not only directly only vertical, but it's actually across diagonally. So that's what this framework means. Vertical, horizontal, and diagonal. So these types of interactions occurs throughout this relief disaster crisis management. So we also looked at this public-private sector partnership, okay, and cross-sectoral partnership and cross-jurisdictional interactions, which means jurisdictional of a public sector is not really insulated. Sometimes in many cases in crisis mode, it occurs between private-public, public-private, and also non-profit and for-profit. These are all cross-jurisdictional and geographically as well. Okay, municipal level jurisdiction versus another municipal or in different layers of jurisdictions in public administration. All right. So these are all I prepared for today, and I know we have some time left, not much, but I would like bring your any questions, comments, or feedback of you share your insights. But again, thank you very much for your attention, and I would like to thank again the invitation. I'm very honored to meet audience here in Indonesia, which has a very significant role in not just in the country level in Southeast Asian part. In Asia is growing power in the world level and also global civil society as well. And the impact is significant. So, and also the students in the public administration will be the potential contributor in the crisis, in the polite crisis in the future. But thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very much, Mr. Pogyo Jong, PhD, for your insightful presentations. Your discussions has provided us with valuable perspective and challenges and complexities faced in public administrations during the crisis and public crisis. Your experiences as a researcher at UN United Nations has inspired us and made this study more evidence-based for the development of public administrations studies. And now, okay, ladies and gentlemen, and all participants, now we will proceed to the questions and answer sessions. For if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and type them in the chat box, or you can do it. Yeah, I will facilitate the discussions, questions for Dr. Pokyo Jung. And actually, Dr. Jonathan or Dr. Pokyo Jung in Indonesia times now is now waiting time to break Ramadan fast for Muslim students, or Indonesia we can call it ngabuburit. There are Indonesian term for waiting time for break Ramadan fast.
Oh,
Yeah,
I know how excited you are at the break time, right?
yeah.
And I
Okay.
I heard that there's a lot of time to gather together after break time or go out for to eat outdoors, right? And then the
Yeah,
restaurant.
yeah.
I'm really see how anxiously waiting for you to go out to eat with your family and friends, the colleagues.
Okay.
It's great to see you here. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Then, there are any questions?
So I'm between your like eating time and so you're really anxiously
Yeah.
waiting. to go out
Okay.
to eat, right?
Aditya Rawul. Oke, Mas Aditya Rawul and Pak Bakti Gusti. Pak Bakti. Okay. Maybe Aditya Rawul first. Adit, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity for my question. Before maybe there is soul because apa namanya? Wait. Um, Professor Hol wait. Wait. I don't understand.
Just call me Bok. My first name is Bok. Just call me Bok. Is it easier
Okay,
for you? Okay, yes.
sorry, Professor. Okay, you say early the decision may be supported by science and data. You say that because I think in Indonesia, from what I see when I poly crisis and occurs, there is a lot of the presence of expert in providing explanation and ways to deal with this crisis maybe.
Mhm.
And I think the presence of the government of Indonesia is
Mhm.
important as a responsibility, but presence of scientists to provide an explanation of why this happened and how to deal with it. And
Mhm.
so, what do you think about Professor opinion? Your opinion maybe regarding this matter and what should be the policy because Indonesia in last year joined to bridge and Indonesia
Mhm.
also joined to the UN and
Mhm.
Indonesia
Mhm.
support for the climate change. Maybe you can give we explanation for your opinion maybe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a very important question. And so I would say that the education curriculum in the public sector and like your university will provide a lot of curriculum that make you people understand the process data and then analyst and scientist as well as a decision maker and the negotiator, coordinator and managers. So think about what this crisis occurs and what it carries in terms of solution. You have to understand the nature of crisis. And that also is not only one-time process. You have to learn from the prior the crisis. Think about what happened during pandemic. There are some countries who went through prior similar public sector crisis were able to do better response. Why? Because in that case, you process the data, how government agencies respond, and what worked, what didn't work. So these all information should analyze that, should include it in their future manual, the public sector agencies to address a similar upcoming crisis. So that's why it's important to manage the data and see what was the most effective or what didn't work. So in that case, we have to learn from those price crises from the former or different parts of the world. But at the same time, so these based on the scientific data, right? And we need collaboration of data sharing, transparency, and also trust in the government system. Sometimes these all efforts, in sometimes warning cases these days, and there are some distrust and low confidence trust in government system and government efforts. So that becomes an obstacle in managing and mobilizing those analytical data science-based approach. So so that should be part of a public administration curriculum to make students in the public administration to become also the decision maker based on science and data, the evidence-based decision making. So, but again, this is one single example, But again, this should be shared norm of across this one single country. But again, the current environment across the world has increased the distrust, low confidence in the public sector response. That's what we have to deal with, the public administrators and also the educators in the public sector, to make sure the public recover its confidence in the database science response system. But thank you.
Okay, thank you for the response, Dr. Ko Gyeong. Okay, the next questions. Mbak Lintang jadi bertanya. Oke, ya, Mbak Lintang, Miss Lintang, you have the floor.
Okay, I'm Siti Lintang, a third semester student. Permission to ask Dr. Bok Yu Jung in the handbook and polychoresis. A student encourages there in explanation of the material and actor encourages discussion, the role of different actor, government, NGO, international organization in dealing with crisis. The question is how does the roles of NGO and international organization deliver in providing assessment compared to the local government? Can doctor give a conference complex from the specific situation?
Okay, thank you very much. That question is directly related to my research area, so I really appreciate it. So if I introduce my background, so I'm an educator, associate professor at Kane University in Public Administration, but my research mainly covers collaboration of NGOs and civil society, and that includes also international NGO like the UN and World Bank, Asia Development Bank, and these all collaboration occurs beyond the one central, one municipal government. So the reason I'm looking at these partners in NGOs and international organizations is that the problems in the crisis time is not that simple. Government introduce a certain policy, but with expectation, with actual implementation of these NGOs in the local level. For example, during pandemic, what happened in the case of South Korea? I did publish another paper, a couple of papers from the pandemic case in South Korea with collaboration. I can actually share the link of the specialist journal I wrote. Is me and my partner specifically looked at how those NGOs and also civil society actors work together and during this pandemic time as our partner. So then we looked at, and that role of NGO and civil society is beyond just the implementation of a service provision. So we looked at it should go beyond just a simple layered of a local level service delivery. It should be part of a partner in the decision making in the early stage. Why sometimes NGOs and be an expert in their actual responses. They have accumulated response and experience in this crisis management. So governments should take advantage of these experts accumulated on the local level and or international level. So in that case, the UN has specialized agents in the relief management or migrant issues and refugee issues and crisis issues. So the government in each one country should consider their experts from their partners should be considered when they make decisions at the early stage, rather than just they make all decisions, just ask them to deliver services. Sometimes it doesn't work. So that's what I said, that So these actors should be not disregarded in all crisis management, specifically because this is very important. And this polite crisis is even more significant because this is not even single instance. It's multi examples, multi-layered, and you sometimes even know when it start, when end. So that's why I'm providing that. Okay. So, but thank you. I'm not sure whether I responded fully, but if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay. So I'm providing this link. This is from the case I did. I typed in the chat. If you see this example of a specialist journal published from the case of South Korea during pandemic, the collaboration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Doctor, it really helps my curiosity on the account. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very great question.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Lintang. And wow, it's amazing. Thank you for link. So all students, we can learn about this link that been shared from Dr. Bagyo Jung. And maybe we can move to last person questions. Okay. In these sessions, maybe we can. Okay.
Maybe I have a question once again.
Okay. Wait, Mas Adit. We can move to the other person maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Mbak Ade.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you
Okay.
for the
Time is yours.
opportunity. Okay, thank you for the opportunity, Pak Sodik. Thank you for your insightful presentation, Mister. I would like to ask about a critical issue. In a polycrisis situation, conflicts of interest often arise between the public and private sectors. What collaborative strategies can be implemented to address these challenges?
Okay, thank you. That's a great question and very critical question. So, thank you. That in reality, sometimes conflict exists rather than beyond just collaboration of public and private sector. And private sector entities sometimes also located in the political conflict as well. So depending on your interest, take advantage of your involvement industry in a certain region and becomes more dominant. Okay, so that a lot occurs during those conflicts and wars. Think about what's happening in African conflicts region, right? And Middle East, in also Ukraine. So a lot of conflicts coexist, not just public sector. A lot of global corporations entered as a part of their efforts to effect that the decision or their benefits. A lot of issues occurred in Africa, for example. A lot of in examples we call it conflict minerals. I don't know whether how many of you heard the term conflict minerals, which means a lot of minerals and in very affluent in African countries. A lot of corporations go there to take advantage international multilateral corporations. They want their cheap labor, and they want to get those minerals with low cost. And sometimes they take advantage of those conflict situations because they can get a good deal out of it. Okay. So anyway, in this case, the government should be able to very careful to coordinate which will more benefit as a lasting, sustainable impact, peaceful impact with the less exploitation of the local resources, for example, right? So, and in some cases, those are conflicts, not just humanitarian purposes, that has lots of conflicts in political region as well. There are a lot of ethnic conflicts, and then each ethnic groups have a different intent when they respond. They want to bring different agencies. Instead of bringing A country, they want to bring B country, right? So why? Because sometimes ethnically or religiously there are different foundation or base. So these are all different identities, right, surrounding this one conflict. They want to influence in different intent, right? So that's why sometimes collaboration is not that simple because you, as a public administrator, you have to know the full picture out of it. So it's important to coordinate to minimize the potential tension and conflicts in a post-conflict time because it's easy to make your sudden decision that will have a lasting impact in the local community and local resources in terms of sustainability. The same for the example of pandemic as well. Look at the pandemic, what it occurred. It brought lots of private sector partners, right? And in a certain recovery efforts. It brought lots of a part of local community partners. And then government should be the center and the hub to see in terms of whole public interest, what is the most beneficial for the community or municipal level, and what's less damaging in the community. So that's again, this is a very difficult question. That's why sometimes public sector administrators goes beyond just data analyst. Okay, so this is kind of a good lesson I can provide. Public sector managers should learn the big picture and negotiator beyond just showing the data science, right? Sometimes data science doesn't tell everything because data science can be manipulated by with some single actor who have a certain intent behind it. So again, so I showed through my responses because these questions are amazing from your students, and that actually made me to share all picture the role, multiple roles of data, the public administrator, not just as a data scientist, the analyst, but at the same time, decision maker and also negotiator with different stakeholders. Well, thank you. I'm not sure whether I answered fully what you wanted, but thank you very much.
Thank you for your answer, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, it was insightful discussions, but yeah, we have to end these sessions. Actually, once again, thank you so much. I would like to certainly thanks to Dr. Bokyo Jung for your sharing his experience with us today, and your perspective is have been truly enlightening, and we deeply appreciate your time and your effort in engaging with us. I would like to express my gratitude to all participants for your active involvement. I hope this lecture can be beneficial for all, and we encourage you to continue to all students. We can continue exploring the complexity of the public administrations in especially in crisis or and polycrisis context in national or maybe in global area. Okay,
Thank
before
you very
we
much.
end of these sessions, may we can take photo documentations together. Yeah, maybe to all participant can be open or active the camera. We
Well, then while you're
can.
waiting, I would like to thank you again for the invitation
Okay.
and also it's my honor to meet your faculty and students in your university. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Okay, who's been taken? Siapa nih yang ngambil gambar nih? Pak Bakti atau dari admin ini, Mbak Dia? Mbak Dia. Oke, saya ambil komando ya, gambar ya. Semuanya semoga bisa kedapatan. Satu, we can take picture three time. Oke, one, two, three. Oke, cheers. Once again, one, two, three, cheers. And once again, last, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you so much for all participants. With that, we officially conclude our public lecture today. And thank you all and have a wonderful day. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yeah.
Enjoy your food after Ramadan all day today.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.